panelists, they can join us later. Now, my name is Clement Onyango. I'm the committee member of Kenya Consumer Protection Advisory Committee within the Ministry of Trade. I sit there as a committee member, but previously I was also the CEO of KE-CIRT International here in Kenya. I'll be chairing this particular session, but I'll be fair. I know it's a very short time, and also I'm the guy me and my team, we are the guys who are sitting between you and your lunch. So I'll try to I'm being told half an hour. Well, we're going to try to do that within half an hour. So I won't take much time. Let's start the introduction by Madam, please.
Thank you, Bwana Moderator. My name is Joy Nyaga. I work for Airtel Networks Kenya Limited. I take care of the legal and regulatory aspect of the business.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Eric Njuri. I work in Telecom Kenya Limited. I'm in the regulatory department.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kevin Mutiso. I wear two hats. I am the chairman of the Digital Lenders Association of Kenya. You heard the governor talking about unregulated lenders. We represent about 90% of those unregulated lenders. We call ourselves mission-driven fintechs. And then, of course, my other hat is I am a CEO of a fintech called Oye. You see me wearing my reflector jacket, and we work with border riders. Asante.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael Eganza. I'm from the Central Bank of Kenya, and I'm the Director of Banking and Payments at Central Bank. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, the panelists. As I said, my name is Clement. And as you've also heard, we are I think someone told me that there's no better time to be alive than this time round. In terms of the digital technology, and at the core of it being able to actually address and actually interlink with so many things that touches our lives. And today, and this particular theme is actually basically on finance. But then at the core of digital financial services is the mobile network operators. So I would actually wish to ask questions to ask these questions to Ms. Joy Nyaga. In the terms of at the core of digital technology, where it touches on financial and MNOs, what are you guys doing as service providers to make sure that digital financial services protects the consumers?
Okay, thank you for that question. For MNOs, basically, I can describe ourselves as a bridge. And by that I mean, we are the bridge between the customers, the consumers of the services, and the service providers. We do provide some of the services, of course, as mobile, the regular mobile services, but also we also facilitate others in the financial sector, and we partner with a lot of them. There's banks and other players in the market that we facilitate by providing the network and the system through which they can reach their customers. And so that is the critical role in a nutshell. Of course, through our agents and all that, we are able to reach our customers, we're able to bring the customers on board. And so that's also a very integral part of the whole network system. So basically, in a nutshell, I think that's all I can say in terms of our role without taking too much time. Yeah.
I think I would ask the same questions to Digital Lenders Association in terms of what do you think, and maybe for the sake of the audience and maybe the consumers who are maybe following it up on YouTube, what is the role of Digital Financial Lenders Association in protecting the consumers in Kenya?
That's a good question. So in 2018, we were formed by 7 lenders, namely Chala, Branch, Okole, Alternative Circle, and 4 others. And the idea was, how do we communicate to the ecosystem that actually there are 2 sets of players in the ecosystem? So one is the raw shaming messages, the one that contravenes the Data Privacy Act, and those of us who are mission driven. So we came up with a code of conduct that we launched in 2019. And if you read the code of conduct, if you go to our website, blak.co.ke, and you click on code of conduct, you see that the first thing we were trying to do was protect the consumer. So we set up a set of rules, market conduct behavior for the lenders who would be part of the Digital Lenders Association of Kenya. What we have done is we've been able to partner with people like Safaricom and other ecosystem players to identify the rogue players and even report them to the necessary or relevant authorities, some of whom were here today earlier in the morning. So the role we play is, one, we have set a minimum standard for how consumers must be treated, and then two, we actively seek out the rogue lenders and report them to the relevant actors.
Thank you so much. Now, the next question I think goes to the Communications Authority, and that's specifically Mr. Oro. Digital financial services is wrought by a lot of a lot of issues of consumer regarding their data, and I think the question that keeps coming is our data safe as consumers? I don't know what role is CA, Communications Authority, doing to make sure that such information is safe. And especially now that we're getting into the electioneering period, which was actually mentioned here, how safe is our data?
Okay, thank you, moderator. My name is Juma Ora Said. I think to answer your question is about in terms of digital financial services, we have had quite a number of issues coming from the consumers, especially in terms of probably their data not being so private or their information not being so private in terms of doing transactions, and then the transactions in one way or the other get involved in certain fraudulent practices. And so from our point of view, because some of these people use the telecommunication gadgets and also they go through the telecommunication system, so we do have generally a mandate to protect the consumers. So when such happen, I know there are certain areas that are related or are relevant to the Central Bank of Kenya, and there are those that are related to us in terms of the network services. So what relates to the Central Bank of Kenya, we have a way of collaborating with them so that we can push that to them. And then what relates to what happens in the telecommunication system, then we deal with that as consumer issues within our system.
Thank you, Mr. Oro. Mr. Ganza, you're part of the panelists and you're from the Central Bank. And the quick question someone asked is the integrity of the finance, of the money that the average consumer has. Is our money safe? When we are sending money there, there's the issues, the integrity. What mechanisms? First of all is the question of safety, and then secondly, what mechanisms do you have in place as Central Bank to ensure that our transactions are secure?
I think, thank you very much for the question. Maybe I'll start off by just stating out what is the role of Central Bank, especially in the digital finance space. And consumer protection is a very integral part of what we play. And we draw this mandate from various statutes. There's the Banking Act, there's the National Payments Act, there's the Central Bank Amendment Act that brought in the digital lenders. I think within all these acts, CBK draws its mandate from, and part of the mandate that it draws from this particular act is being able to formulate policies and establishment of regulations that ensure that in the ecosystem we have players that provide efficient and effective products. Now, what does that then basically mean? It means that we are able to lay out in our mandate, we have a proper legal and regulatory framework that outlines what exactly we look for when we license either financial institutions or payment service providers to be able to provide some of these services. And some of the services that you mentioned are mobile financial services. That's where you have your M-Pesa and all that. And there are a couple of things that we do look out for when we are licensing these entities, but more importantly, when they are providing these particular services that touch on safety. And part of, for mobile financial services, the fundamental control that we put in place is to ensure that the funds that are held in trust for consumers, those funds are protected. They are ring-fenced and they are not commingled with the organization's money, and it's something that we monitor very closely to ensure that the usage, the availability of those funds is there and they are not abused. And we have mechanisms working with payment service providers through regular reporting that allow us to monitor that. But I think more importantly, there are a lot of other consumer protection activities that we do that ensure that monies that sit in the ecosystem are secure. And part of that relates to just how the services are rolled out. So, for example, we look at things, whenever a licensee comes and says, I want to be able to provide a product, and that product is layered on, let's say, mobile financial services, we look at how is it designed? Is it appropriate? Is it safe? And we drill deeper down to really not look at the customer journey, but also look at the security of the infrastructure that provides that particular service to certify ourselves that indeed it is secure, but more importantly, it's something that the customer from a journey perspective understands, but more importantly, even as the product goes to market, that customers have been fully educated to be able to understand what is it that it's trying to solve. The appropriate disclosures have been made, whether it's pricing, whether it's the terms and conditions of how the product is. So all those things come into play. And I think it's quite a lengthy subject, but if you look at all those things together, and they're quite vary from the technology side of it to the business end of it, ensure that the products are safe and customers' money is safe. And what we also tend to do, and that's provided in the regulatory framework, is that we have what we call enforcement measures. So for actors and our licensees that don't play ball, we have a way of ensuring that through law that we hold them accountable, and this is through various enforcement. It could be through penalties, it could be through withdrawing of the licenses, etc., etc. So those tools are available to us, and we make use of them as and when appropriate.
Thanks a lot, Michael. I keep asking myself, Safaricom quite often is at the center of a lot of areas as it comes to issues of money transfer and even DFS. But then the question also goes again to Telkom. My brother there would actually tell you. I would ask, as a channel between the consumers and the money lenders, what are you doing to ensure that DFS is actually, digital financial services, is fair and safe? And for instance, do you have, service level agreements with some of these, digital financial lenders? So I'll start with you, Lucille, and then my brother can come in. You can just use the mic, yes.
Thank you, good afternoon, and apologies everybody. I was held up somewhere, and thank you for your question. When it comes to digital financial services, first of all, the first thing is to ensure that there's financial inclusion. And as both our regulators have said, that's our core mandate. And I come from a background where I was working in banking as well. So financial inclusion is key, scalability. But with that then, to your question, means that for us to scale, we must have partners, we integrate, we have different people who are offering services. And at the core of that, then our banking regulator comes into play very hard. And as you've heard from Ganza, we look at the customer journey. And the customer journey maps everything from how easy is it for the customer to access the digital financial services, all the way to when it's disbursed, and what are the parts that come to play. Therefore, internally, our processes will cover SLAs with our third parties. We begin to push consequence management because of what I heard you speak about earlier, rogue lenders, where you'll terminate a contract. Just the fact that you're offering a service does not mean it's, an automatic acceptance of us to access customers. But then also, how easy is it to apply for it? How transparent is it for you to know what you have borrowed, what has been disbursed to you, what you're paying? So the processes end to end in terms of governance is something that we look at within the organization.
Yeah, thank you so much. Please.
Thank you. Yeah, my colleague from Safaricom has answered well. I would like to add that you have asked about SLAs, and if we have. Yes, we do have SLAs with these lenders on behalf of the consumer. But the challenge comes here. Do those SLAs capture the consumer totally? The answer is no. Because as an MNO, we only reach a certain level on time to deliver. If you request the time taken to get an SMS, if you want to undo, how you can get it, how you can get the loan. But when it comes to issues like the interest charged, hidden charges, and those are the things affecting the consumer. And in the first session, we talked about a happy consumer. Yes, on our part as MNOs, we try to make sure the SLA captures all the technology responsibilities of us and the lender, and of course the company which is being used by the lender to offer this money. Two, we protect the rights of the consumer by making sure that the consumer consents. Here, the link between the consumer and the lender is through the mobile phone. We make sure that the consumer has to consent on the terms and conditions of this app he or she is downloading. For example, you will get a common request whereby the mobile phone will tell you, the app will tell you, do you give permission for this app to access your contact list? Most people just say yes, and you proceed. Then it asks you another question. Do you give this app permission to send messages to ABCD? Most people don't read, we just say yes. That is when now we start getting problems whereby some of these lenders start using dubious methods, recovering the unpaid money. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for that. I think I'm back again to the regulator in terms of, up to now, what we understand, it's not everyone else is actually, not everyone is covered by digital financial services. There are people who still cannot actually access. And talking about financial inclusivity, the question would be, what is the authority doing to ensure that actually everyone is able to access, everyone has access to digital financial services? Please. You could also introduce yourselves. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for the question. My name is Fred Ongaro from the Universal Service Fund. What I can say is it is the mandate of the authority to actually facilitate a conducive environment for commercial operators to be able to roll out. But as you understand, and some of your panelists, they have shareholders behind them. So some areas are not, you cannot actually go economically enter into those areas, probably because of the costs involved and the customer base is low. But from 2016 to 2021, we did 2 surveys in 2016, and 2G was around 94.6, 3G was around 78% of the population, but now it has actually improved. Right now we have quite a large number of the population covered. But for those areas that operators cannot commercially enter into those markets, that's why we have the Universal Service Fund. It's all about affordability, accessibility to the service for those areas that are not covered yet. So the first phase of our project that we have, the Cellular Mobile Infrastructure and Services project, we implemented in 78 sub-locations. These are areas where sometimes you view on TV, people walking kilometers and several kilometers to be able to access services. So we started with those sublocations that actually don't have access at all. Then we moved to the second phase of 101 sublocations, where we covered also another set. Probably now they couldn't go into the first phase because they were probably 70% covered. Now we have moved to around 50 to 40%. So in the third phase, actually if I go back, the first phase is almost complete. The second phase, some sublocations are already covered and providing services. So going forward, we have the third phase where we intend to roll out in 67 kind of sublocation. So as we go, I'm thinking in the next probably 2-3 years, we will have, we now go into micro solutions where you find there is a coverage on one part, a coverage on the other, but there is the middle section where people are not also covered. So in the process of facilitating this rollout, probably in 2016, the most important thing was making a call. So right now, what is important to customers, and from the morning session, is that people are using apps to access digital financial services. So they need broadband, that is 3G and 4G and LTE. I don't know what's coming next. But what we are saying is the next phases, the second and third phase, we're actually focusing on broadband. And the authority is actually putting in mechanisms to ensure that this broadband infrastructure is available, and with the Universal Service Fund, we can take it to the areas that are not covered.
Thanks, Mr. Ongaro. I'm still on the issue of growth, because I know with growth comes a lot of issues of consumer protection and the consumer issues of access. And so I'll take this question again to mobile service providers. And to you, Joy, for instance, and anyone else also can take this question additionally, is what are some of the challenges you're facing as a service provider in terms of growing the digital financial ecosystem?
So, interesting question, and very real in terms of the challenges that as MNOs we are facing in growing the ecosystem. One very basic one is integration. Simply speaking, you want to partner with various businesses across the divide, and the level of maturity of the systems probably not at the same stage. So you find the integration issues, which is very basic in terms of will it facilitate the customer in accessing the service? Will it protect the customer when accessing the service? And that brings me to the next issue, which is information security concerns in terms of, yes, on your side you could be covered as an MNO, but the person or the partner who you are integrating with, how is the system on that end? Is it properly protected? Is the customer protected in terms of data, the data that you're sharing, of course, across as you provide the service? Even as an MNO, as you integrate, obviously you expose yourself, you expose your systems. Are you protected to some of these cyber security issues? The other issue that also comes up is resistance, very basic, resistance to change. Of course, that comes with customer or consumer education. Some consumers may not understand the processes that you put in place. You try, of course, as a MNO in partnership with, if you are in partnership in that instance, you try as much as possible to sort of simplify the process and give the consumer the easiest process so that they can be able to access the service. But at times there's suspicion, of course, and also just general lack of knowledge, which comes as a barrier to the consumer using the service. So those are three. I think my colleagues can add to that.
Please.
Yes.
Yeah.
If I may comment on that and build onto what Joy has said. I think from where I sit,
Microphone, please. Yeah.
now
Okay.
I think
Okay.
now I'm audible. I think one of the key observations that we picked out of the FIN Access, and this is the FIN Access study that was released in December by Central Bank, was, yes, indeed, financial inclusion in terms of the metrics has grown threefold, from I think 26.7% in 2006 to the current 83.7%, which is good news. I think the key feedback that came out of that was that there's still a challenge in terms of the usage and quality of financial services. And the key statistics that probably came out of that particular study was financial literacy, whereby 45% of the respondents that were interviewed clearly say that they rely on either friends or family members for financial advice, which brings in a very critical element of financial literacy, especially for the marginalized and financially excluded communities of this country, whereby as much as you may be able to avail digital financial services, what level of financial literacy do they have for them to be able to partake in these new solutions that are now being availed through digital channels? I think which calls into question the level of financial education that we need to be able to deploy, both as regulators but also as solution providers, so that then we can be able to bring in these particular populations into partaking of digital financial services. So financial education, customer education, do they understand what products they're getting themselves into? Do they understand how to, the opportunities and risks that are availed through these particular products? And I think that's very, very important. And if we're able to do that, then we will be able to bring more people into the digital finance ecosystem.
Thanks, Michael. Thank you.
I love that we got in perspectives from the regulator, from the MNO, but I wanted to give one from the actual app lending side. So the way we look at the way we analyze a customer is three lenses: fraud, ability to repay, and willingness to repay. So fraud, what are the challenges we have with fraud? Chairman earlier said that one of the big challenges we have is the source of truth. Are you really who you say you are, right? So challenge there is we need to improve that system, and as Chairman said, we can't wait for Huduma to have a single source of truth. And we have many other fraud mechanisms, but that's the key one we need to solve for. The other key thing is that our CRB is still not yet real time. So there's an assumption that if we default on the 2nd of March, that by April 2nd, the next month, it will be in the CRB, but that is not true. It actually takes almost 60 days in total for that record to then be updated, and that brings another set of challenge called over-indebtedness. So we are unable to know, has James taken a loan from Branch, Tala, Oye, in the last 6 hours, for example? Because we're not able to do that, we have that challenge of over-indebtedness. The second lens, of course, then is ability to repay. Can you repay the loan? Right? Just spoken about CRB. That's where we normally get that data from, and from other financial data. One of the good things we saw with the national payment strategy is this idea of open banking, and so the notion that we'll be able to take customers' financial data from one sort of API and then do an analysis to then score that customer is a very good idea. And we actually think it will move that financial inclusion faster. And of course, you've got willingness. Right? Willingness means Kevin Mutiso wants a loan of 10,000. He has an income that can more than pay that 10,000, but will he pay back that loan? Right? So there you've got two challenges. The first one, my distinguished colleague here said, financial literacy. People do not understand that when you take a loan, that money is not yours. That money is borrowed and has to be repaid back as per the terms. We have a real issue in this market. And the second issue is more societal. We have a low trust society. Therefore, there's this notion of, I have Nimewagonga, I've gotten the loan from the app, now I'll run away, I'll switch off the SIM card, I'll go get a new SIM card from either Telco or Safaricom, and they'll never find me. So those are the main challenges we face from the lending side.
Yes, please. Mike.
Thank you. I want to add on what my colleagues have part is where now the problems comes in. As an operator, you don't accept to sign an agreement because it will not adhere to what the Act or the law says or regulation says. So the challenge here is that these acts and regulations in relation to digital financial services, they should be updated as need comes. You can have a good one this month, you should not shy off to amend or update 3 months down the line. Because normally they take a year or 3 years, because the innovation space is growing very fast. Instead of making the innovation wait for the regulations to be updated, let's go hand in hand. Thank you.
Thanks. Yes.
Being consumers' rights day. Consumers' rights day.
So you can take that on.
Thank you. Being World Consumers' Rights Day, my comments perhaps will speak for the consumer in this regard, in terms of the challenges. You know, in the study that CA commissioned in 2020 on the consumer protection in digital financial services, it was actually very interesting to learn that 57% of the people who borrow, they borrow for households and personal expenses. Now that goes back to what you both talked about in terms of financial literacy, willingness to pay, understanding that this money is there, you've borrowed it, and it needs to be repaid. So financial inclusion means that we've made it very easy to access finance. But with that ease of access comes a different challenge, because I have a very pressing need right now that will not generate income. It's money for household expense. I need to pay rent. So I am able to access that through various platforms in terms of sorting that need. So 57%. So what are we then saying? From a consumer perspective, we then now have a responsibility to mitigate that challenge, to start building up the savings culture, which is also part of what comes in the digital financial services. And this problem only got worse during the COVID period. And therefore, it's still something we're grappling with in terms of how we balance giving access, solving the problem that consumers face from the traditional lending. You know, it's much, much harder to access finance. And how do we balance giving that ease of access, but also the understanding that there's an element of repayment. So that is also what we keep working on.
Thanks a lot. Kevin, I'm sure the audience will perhaps have gone through this. Someone asked a very simple question. Where do you guys get data? Where are your members, for instance, get data to sort of harass consumers? There's been a lot of hue and cry around digital lenders about where they get that data from, and maybe your answering would actually help consumers to be more educated regarding giving you their data. And what are you doing with regards to your members? Because you've also had cases of someone is calling your sister and your sister was not next of kin. You wonder, how has it reached a level where even your mother and the girlfriend, even boyfriend is being asked? So maybe, Kevin, you might want to tell us that.
So let me give everyone some context. So in 2007, M-Pesa is launched. In 2012, M-Shwari is launched. M-Shwari is a USSD lending solution. In 2014, Tala is launched. Right? So 2014 is the first time we have an app. So the way it works is that we go and we seek permissions from the Google Play Store. When the customer downloads the app, we ask them, can we access certain data sets? So we ask for SMS, we ask for contact details, we ask for many other data sets. Now I want to give you insight into how we use that data to make a credit decision. So this one is very public. So I'll give 2 examples. The first one is Tala. So with Tala, one of them, so we, and when I say data, I mean we look at over 2,000, sometimes up to 20,000 data sets. But I'm just giving one sort of you say with a capital K and a capital M, you're more likely to get that loan than somebody who says small k, small m. Right? Now, you're going to ask me, what is the correlation?
You want to ask?
And I'm going to say, I don't know. The way we use data, the data tells us how to go. We want to find predictability, right? Now, those people who take your data, your contact details, and then call your mother and your grandmother and your relatives are breaking the law. But I want to bring you back to context. In 2014 is when the app started. 2019 is when the Data Protection Act became a law, right? 15 months ago is when the Office of the Data Commissioner was then operationalized. So I can confirm here now that we are working hand in hand with that office to ensure that those rogue lenders are actually brought to book. And I can give you a story, another story. What we have done with Safaricom is that any time we see one of these rogue lenders sending a message, and I'm welcoming anyone here who has these experiences, send it on my Twitter DM, on my LinkedIn direct message. Send me the screenshot of that message that's attacking you or saying something crazy, and send it to me. And then what I do is we then forward it to the relevant people at Safaricom, and then they do an investigation. We've had instances where the digital lender in question is actually using the pay bill of a wines and spirit, right? So there is two types of players in this market. You've got the true fintechs who are trying to solve for financial inclusion, and then you've got the predatory lenders who are just Shylocks who have graduated into using a digital platform to continue harassing people. So when, what I'm trying to beg you as the audience is kindly make that dichotomy in your head. There's two players, there's one trying to solve for financial inclusion, and there's another who's literally trying to take advantage of the fact that you have no cash. They know you need that cash. In fact, whenever these people send me their screenshots, the first thing I ask, did you go to the website to see if they're members? Because if you went to our website, you know these are the people who will serve you properly. If you go somewhere else, you're going to be harassed, and that's unfortunately the consequence.
Thanks, Kevin. Lucille, you wanted to ask something. Please go ahead.
For me, from where I sit, this is a problem that is shocking. I know Governor alluded to the fact that the central bank has now issued regulations that will govern the licensing and supervising of regulatory of digital credit providers. And I think my urge to the public is that once this process is concluded, just deal with regulated digital lenders. You're set up from a data perspective, from a cost perspective, for you to be, even from just your own mental health, for you to be able to engage and do business with regulated credit providers. And I think that level of sanity is what will actually help us to address the challenge that we face, especially with the predatory behavior and the unethical practices that we see in that particular space.
Yeah, audience, you hear, just deal with regulated digital lenders. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. And as we deal with regulated digital lenders, when we talked about the data sets in terms of how we save numbers, or rather how we save contacts, why I looked at you is, how many of us have saved contacts that were sent on WhatsApp? You just say save contacts, eh? So, that's what I was laughing. I was saying, if I don't get a loan, maybe it's Joyce's fault if she sends me. No, but I think this is what we were talking about earlier, and it's a great day today, because I'm not just sitting as an MNO, I'm also a customer, and my role is really about putting the customer first, irrespective of where the services are offered, because somewhere they'll converge into Safaricom. So something small like that, the first thing then I'd say with my partner integrated is how can we expand that base? Because we know behavior
Yeah, thanks a lot, Lucille, for that. Yeah, I think I'm back to the Communications Authority, and actually before my question comes, if you look at the Consumers International, who are normally supposed to set the tone for World Consumer Rights Day, they're looking at the vision of digital finance being safe. And how are, for instance, e-commerce platforms, are they safe? And this goes back to, again, Communications Authority. You've had enough cases where by nowadays, I can't even believe that nowadays I'm able to buy even a suit on the internet. I'm able to buy socks or literally everything. But enough times now in Nairobi here, those things are never delivered, or sometimes you buy something, it's not exactly what you basically asked for. What is the Communications Authority doing to ensure that the platforms we have are safe and actually reliable? Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Clement. I'll take it seated down. One of the things that we are doing to ensure that platforms are safe is monitoring of the networks on a quarterly basis. And I think the DG alluded to the fact that we actually monitor the networks. And we also receive information from the operators that tells us about the network. So that is one of the ways that we ensure that the networks are safe. Another way is the equipment that is used on the networks. That plays a big role in safety on the networks and actually integrity of the network. So if we put a phone that has not been type approved to be used on our Kenyan networks, there is a risk of that phone causing integrity issues on the network. So we try to ensure that the type of equipment coming into the country is type approved. And that is done, now we're on the KE-CIRT platform, unlike before, from 2019. So all equipment that comes in is type approved and approved to come in by CA into the country on the KE-CIRT platform. So the other thing is we also do responses to consumer protection issues that come up. We try to respond to the issues very quickly, especially network issues. If we have a network problem, the operators will respond within a day. They're expected to respond within a day, right, to the regulator and tell us that there's an issue on the network or on a specific part of the network. And we try and get a solution in conjunction, or they tell us they have sorted it out. So those are some of the ways. Obviously, the Data Protection Act is another way that has helped us with issues of protection. So I think that's all I have.
Thanks a lot for that. I was told my time will be up very, very soon. I want to take this opportunity maybe to give my panelists at least each 2 minutes to give their closing remarks on this particular day. And mostly, what would you tell consumers where you sit in terms of enhancing their rights, accessibility, safety, and also the issues of sustainability for now and the future? Yeah, I'll start with Joy.
Thank you. So from where I sit, I think a lot have been said today. A lot of discussions about how we can better protect our consumers as they partake of the services that we're providing. I will not belabor the point, but from where I sit, I think what I can say is that technology is growing, and alongside the services also are growing within, within the digital finance ecosystem. So as MNOs, I think we have a responsibility to our customers over and above the responsibility placed on us by the regulators. We have a responsibility internally to ensure that the services that we're providing to our customers are safe. Number one, we do not expose the customer or the consumers to undue safety issues in terms of their data, in terms of cybersecurity, issues. And how we do this is first by educating ourselves as MNOs. We make sure that everyone handling customer information internally is well aware of the responsibility that we hold. Also, there's limitation, and maybe this is something I didn't mention earlier. We have to also, one way of preserving or ensuring that there's safety in terms of how we are handling customer information is also limit the handling of customer information, which also ties up with the data protection aspect of it. So that's one way. Of course, digital literacy, and I think that has been discussed, very critical because that aspect introduces not only accessibility or the right to access the services that we've given, but also impacts the customer in terms of the vulnerability to instances of fraud and others. So for me, I think that's a responsibility on our side. On the side of the customer or the consumer also, of course, the consumer also, I must mention, I think we are just talking about our side of the divide, but I think as a consumer also, I think the consumer has a responsibility to also safeguard themselves. So even as we take care of them, even as the regulators ensure that we are taking care of our customers, I think as a consumer also, you have a right to make sure that you're aware, to make sure that you understand what is safe for you, make sure that you consume the information that is given to you. I think most of us in the MNOs ecosystem consistently send messages, and this, I also see this in the banking sector. We consistently send alerts and messages, SMSs, to our consumers. One simple message we tell them is don't share your passwords, don't share your access information. So my appeal also to the consumers is that, yes, when you get these kinds of messages, please take heed, and you know, as much as, you know, we sort of let down our guard, and you know, it happens to all of us when you're around family, friends, and all that. I think this is something very critical that consumers need to understand, that, look, your security is not only taken care of by other parties, but your security starts with you. So I think this is all I'd say in a nutshell. Thank you very
Joy.
much for this opportunity.
Thanks a lot, Joy.
Yeah.
The hosts have just given me some latitude to at least take up to 3 questions from the audience. And so how we're going to be answering them, you can direct them, just be very specific on where you're directing the question, and maybe the panelists might actually answer as they wrap up their session. So I'm going to give this opportunity to 3 people from the audience to ask questions, and kindly be specific. That's number 1. 3 questions. We have the first one, the second one from that side, and then the third one. That will be it. So please kindly tell us your name and then specifically.
Yes, my name's Lance Malley. I'm the chairman of RDC. RDC means Rights of Digital Comrades. We work online. We are cab drivers, and I'm directing my question to Michael, Central Bank. I think is the one who can answer this question. This is a Consumer Protection Forum. And before I go to the second question, I would wish
it's only
to
one
know,
question.
Okay, I would wish to know that the government is protected, because I know government is the biggest consumer, and it is the duty of Central Bank and Kenya Revenue Authority to protect the government. But because Kenya Revenue Authority is not here, I am going to direct my question to Central Bank. We work with various applications, whereby some are local and others are international. They are foreign applications. Our rates and payment are determined online, and they are meant online. Now, what I wanted to know is there are 2 companies we work with, and payment is meant online. In fact, payment is meant to one company. Headquarter is Amsterdam in the Netherlands. The other one, headquarter is Tallinn, a small country in Northern Europe called Estonia. I wanted to know from Central Bank how we protect the government, like it is when you are doing business in Kenya, you have to pay taxes. All this money is paid online and wired abroad. What parameters do you have to make sure the government is protected, because everything is done online and the money wired online? And if you find there's something wrong, or there is a fraud which is being committed by these applications, do you have powers to suspend their license pending investigation of the same? Thank you.
Okay. Can you take the second question? There was a lady, there.
My name is Caroline Adiero. This goes to FinTech. My question is, you've told us that when you go to your website, we'll find the regulated digital lenders. What are you doing about the unregulated digital lenders? Because thanks to God we are here, we've known that we can go to your website and get the regulated. There's someone outside there who doesn't know. As long as they go to Play Store and they find those applications which can lend them, they know they are regulated. That's why they're in Play Store. So what are you doing about the unregulated ones? Thank you.
Yeah. Then yes, the guy in glasses, please.
Yes, thank you. My name is Dan. My question goes to Michael from the Central Bank. So there is a concern about the regulation of startups. That is basically these online trading platforms and digital lending sites, which are startups. You see, basically, they are graduates who have the knowledge of finance, the knowledge of IT. I've got a friend here who is an IT guru. He's just out of campus, and he can make an app that can do that service of online financial services. So my question is this: how are these startups regulated? Because most of these startups end up as online scams, because they tend to borrow ideas from those already bigger companies. And then these ideas, like they have got very great ideas. And then they also tend to be a bit manipulative with higher interest rates. But then how are these startups regulated? Because they end up being the huge scams in the online trading platforms. Thank you.
Okay. Michael, you seem to be very popular. Yeah. Please go ahead.
Do I have a right to delegate some of the questions? Maybe I can share with my panelists some of the questions. But I think I'll start with the first question about payments and how government is protected. So I struggled to understand what the real question was, but I'll attempt to answer it the way I understand it. And maybe if I'm not to the point and I'm maybe off the mark, we can have an engagement after this so that I understand the specifics. However, I think when you talk about payments, and I don't want to purport to speak on behalf of KRA, so this is from a central bank perspective. So payments, especially cross-border payments, and that's what you're talking about. Payments emanate because of two things. One, you're either providing a service, and that service is either between two parties. So the first question will always be is that what service are you engaged in? Is that a regulated service? And if it's a regulated service, who's doing it? And two, payments usually operate within a certain ecosystem. And given the risks that are associated with payments, many a times payments are executed through regulated financial institutions. So ideally, for you to be able to make that payment, you'd go to a bank, or in some instances I've seen now MNOs are also going into that space of payments that are cross-border, either through remittances and all that. Now, when you go to banks, there's KYC, we talked about KYC, what is it that you're paying. There's some information that definitely your banks will be able to source from you to really understand what is this that you're paying, and that creates visibility. And that visibility from a central bank perspective, we get to have a view, especially given the nature or destination of where those payments are going, whether they're suspicious, etc., etc. So there's a whole framework that governs payments being made out of the country, whether they require, FX component to it, and the reporting related to that, which is regulatory reporting related to that, which gives us visibility in terms of what's being made out there. And that visibility is basically based on two things. One, there are risks that are associated with AML CFT, which we as a regulator are concerned, and I'm sure your financial institutions that facilitate in making those payments need to be aware of, and they need to protect the country from. Two, there are issues, and I'm sure probably that's what you're talking about, but I don't want to assume it, issues related to, I know, withholding tax, especially for services that are for services that are being paid out of the country, that are digital in nature, which I think is somebody else's who looks at that. But I think for me is that when you make cross-border payments and payments outside there must be a contract or an arrangement you have with a party with whom you are doing business with. Now, it will always depend on what kind of service you're offering. Is it a legitimate trading transaction? And if it's a legitimate trading transactions, I'm sure it must be governed by some contracts or agreements, and how those agreements then specify how you make those payments, are they legal or not? So there are various permutations to this kind of thing. So I think it would require a bit more detail for me to understand what angle is it that you're raising, so that then I can be able to respond specifically to that. I think there was a question about digital lenders, and this was how do we know who are regulated and who are not regulated, so that for the public. And I think we are moving from a Wild West kind of scenario. Previously, it was a Wild West where there would be those ones that would say, us, we are playing by the rule. He talked about that we are driven by a mission, and then we have others that, pure predatory in nature and all that. So we had, everybody just lumped up into one basket. And now we are moving from that kind of environment that I'm calling a Wild West, where we had the good guys and the bad guys getting into an environment where we would be able to sieve and be able to make sure that it's only the good guys that play by the book are the ones that provide these services. Typically, and the reason why we have a law in place and a regulation in place, that regulation and the supervisory framework provides the central bank mechanisms that are backed by law to ensure that the bad apples, we're able to identify where they operate, we're able to use law enforcement agencies to go after them and issue cease and desist so that they don't operate in the market. So there's a whole elaborate framework that comes with having this providers and a regulated framework that ensures that just the same way we wouldn't have an unlicensed bank operating is the same way I don't seeing us going forward, especially once this takes into effect 6 months after the regulations are published, having unregulated, substantial digital credit providers operating in this jurisdiction that are not, that CBK doesn't have line of sight. And I think that gives the consumers and the users of this service some sort of comfort, comfort in the sense that, and I think part of our mandates as regulators, which is very core, is customer protection. And I think that's our primary mandate. And having line of sight of these providers ensures that we take care of the interest of the consumers, and that's something that I think we will do. There was the last question, if I can remember about it, was about new startups and how we regulate startups and all that. And I'm sure from a central bank, so it's kind of a catch-22 situation. What I know is that from a central bank perspective, we don't have requirements for startups and the law and the regulatory framework does not provide requirements for startups that are much more simplified than requirements for any other players. We have a licensing framework, and that licensing framework is standard. And there's a reason for that. Now that we are talking about customer protection and consumer protection, the reason why we apply the same standards for everybody is that we understand that digital financial services, especially if you're playing in this field of financial services, they're highly risky. And we cannot be able to license, whether you are a startup or not, license anybody who doesn't meet the minimum requirements. And that's the reason why the licensing regime sets certain minimum requirements, and those requirements have to be met by anybody seeking to offer those particular services. And what we do, especially with startups as Central Bank of Kenya, is that we walk with them the journey. We understand that some of these requirements are quite onerous, and some of them, require you to, that can be a bit onerous. So what we try and do is make sure that, especially for the startups and the young people coming with apps, either we work with existing platform providers, for those ones that really are not yet there, the Safaricom's of this world, the Airtel, and we channel them to those, especially if we feel that they can be able to support your idea, especially with it, to go to market faster and all that. But for those ones that are insistent on those ideas and want to be licensed, we have a framework where we work with them. It may take a bit longer, but working with them is to ensure that they meet the requirements. So, sorry, there's no really kind of a shortcut to it, but that's the reason why there's no shortcut to it is because of just trying to ensure that at the end of the day, whoever is licensed is someone who meets the requirement, and it's all about just protecting the customer so that whatever services you offer there then meet the bar. So I'll stop there.
Thanks a lot, Michael. Eric, your parting shot, 1 minute.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank the Communication Authority for giving us this forum. Being a Consumer Rights Day, World Consumer Rights Day, we are also consumers, as it has been mentioned here, and we have learned a lot of things. Second, I would also want to thank all the participants and being given a chance to come and participate in this forum. From Telecom Kenya, we play in this digital finance space through T-Cash. Our product is known as T-Cash. You can download it on Play Store. It's available. You can also access T-Cash through USSD, *160# and follow the prompt. My parting shot is this. The question was if we are safe. That was the main question here. Yes, we are safe. And we have engaged and implemented all the mechanisms. Internally, we have the policy, cybersecurity policies, internal policies. We do the AML training internally so that everybody in that company touching your data or coming across your data knows what to do, knows the boundaries, so you are safe. As consumers, we also have a responsibility. Right now, we are using social media a lot. That is WhatsApp, Telegram, Twitter, IG. Sometimes you get a link forwarded to your phone, and it has a false advertising that you have won, or do you want to know the latest news in Mombasa? Click down. You will click. Most of the consumers click. And some of those links, immediately you click, it's like you have consented for the app to read or to access all the information in your phone, including your apps for the bank, the apps for the mobile money, and something might happen whereby they defraud you your money. So kindly be careful. Before you click any active link, always consult. And if you click by mistake, you report. Yes, you have not been defrauded, but if you click and realize you have clicked a wrong link, you report to the operator, and we will do the necessary and block any unsolicited activity in your phone. Lastly, I would request Communication Authority. Yes, you hold kikao kikus everywhere in the country, and we thank you for that. Yeah, make it often so that consumers will continue learning. And don't forget, you have new consumers. Those who have bought smartphones the other day, they may not have the experience. They are just learning. So don't get tired. Continue organizing such forums. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. 1 minute.
As my colleagues were speaking, I was wondering what to say, so I've decided to split it into 3. The first 2 are a story, a very short story, and the third will be a conclusion. So today is about consumer protection in digital financial services, and I wanted to give you an example of how mission-driven businesses design solutions to protect the consumer. So our last solution was called Shika, and what we used to do is we had a 24-hour app, so anyone who could download the app any time of the day and borrow. Over a few months, we realized that when we looked at the data sets between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. and 6 or 1 p.m. and 7 a.m., then 6 a.m. the next day, we noticed that the day portfolio always performed better than the night portfolio. You can create whatever reasons that is the case. And we decided we're going to operate like a shop. So we're going to switch off the app at 6 p.m. every day. And our big panic was we wanted to lend about 2 million shillings on average every day, and we thought that because we were not going to be able to lend at night, that average would come down. Now here's what happened. Those that used to take the money for real reasons at night changed their behavior and started taking the money during the day, and then would use it and repay us on a normal time. Those that would take the money for whatever reason because it was night, right, stopped doing it. That's called defensive design. So you design understanding the behavior of your customer, and then you help them. The second is my reflector jacket. I'm sure you saw the Boda Boda ecosystem last week was under a lot of fire. And we have a new product called Oye. And so the leaders on Kagundo Road reached out to us and said, you've developed this fantastic product that's giving us free insurance every time you fuel at our partner petrol stations. And you're giving away, we are giving away thousands of reflectors. Why don't you print reflectors that will help us communicate to the public and tell them that we are not all like the ones you saw, right? So again, that's the type of design and mission-driven fintechs are sort of taking. We're listening to the customer and we're helping them make more money. So in conclusion, for me, I'd just like to echo what the Telkom CEO said. This is a great day. As a fintech CEO, I've had the privilege of traveling the world to most fintech hubs, and when you see regulators speaking together, speaking in one voice, engaging with industry like the way they have today, having us on a panel, sitting next to CBK, this is a monumental thing. Let's not take it for granted. I always say that Kenya is punching above its weight. If only we believed a little bit more that we can do it. Asante.
Thanks a lot. Lucille?
Thank you, Mark. So in closing, I think from a Safaricom perspective, it'll be very important to articulate what we're doing for the customers. You know, it's very easy to go to social media and read about what it is that we're not doing. And there's a lot that is actually happening that is not quite visible to everybody. So it is my role, responsibility to bring that to the fore. And it touches on what Kevin has talked about in terms of being a mission-driven or mission-led organization. And when he says mission, you know, it's not just the mission statements that we have around the organization. Our mission philosophy is like the army, yeah? You know, when the army general says that flags fly at half-mast, there's no questioning. they fly at half-mast as an order. So a mission-led organization works with that precision and that type of obsession. So Safaricom's mission is actually to be a customer-obsessed, digital-first, purpose-led technology company by the year 2025. And in that process, my role was created. We do have a customer experience area because who is the advocate for the customer in the organization? Where does everything converge? And therefore, Safaricom is very intentional. Trust me, this is not PR, but it is very, very intentional in terms of being customer obsessed because we have that mandate given the size of the customer base that we have today. So how do we then ensure that our customers, and remember, I'm calling you customers, CN, no offense, not calling them consumer. Customer means I'm speaking to the individual. And CA, you'll be aware, we evolved from calling them subscribers. The regulators say these are not subscribers, they're not SIM cards. We then evolved to consumer, and in Safaricom, it is the customer, understanding the personas behind the people behind the SIM cards. So one, to keep you safe, what is our role? To ensure that you have all registered. So I'm not speaking on behalf of the CA, but to understand the person behind a number range that was given to us by the regulator, we need to understand the person. And then we get into the relationship. So that's the first thing. The second thing is then ensuring that there's customer awareness and education. And awareness includes choice. What services am I picking? What product suits me? Is this good for me or is it not good for me? It's like a parent. Huh? You know, sometimes you ask for something, they say no. It doesn't mean they're bad, it's in your best interest. And therefore, through the customer obsession lens in terms of mission, we have 6 areas that we're focusing to ensure that the customer rights, the customer interests are taken care of. We want to ensure that we've got the right products and services, whether it's in the digital financial services, what do you actually qualify for? In the second area is then to ensure that our financial services are always on. You had the regulator talking about regulating our systems, the quality of services. You had Sitoyo up earlier talking about the planned uptime. You know, we want it as low as possible because we know what M-Pesa means to everybody today. So one, ensuring it's reliable, it's always on. The second bit is ensuring it is safe. And safe in the sense that if you unfortunately get defrauded, and you know, people who social engineer us are very smart. And you may be social engineered in different forums like a jigsaw puzzle before they finally have your final information. And others straightforward take you through a process of defrauding you. So there's a lot of effort there in terms of ensuring that there's detection and prevention of fraud. And at this point, I'll pick on something you asked, Mark, and I'm not sure it was answered. You know, as the online marketplaces have become very popular, Kenyans we trust, right? So you'll go to Instagram, you pick an item, the person behind it, because we don't know who it is, convinces you to pay before delivery, and that's the end of the story. It has actually happened to me. So what are we doing in that space to, as adoption becomes more widespread? Education, first to understand that you have the right to report. The CA's report, again, on data, on customer privacy, was actually shocking when it showed us that customers are aware they were defrauded but choose to do nothing, or that they were aware, you know, of the processes. So the appeal is one, we have channels. We have a 333 number to report any fraud. Use it and trust that there's action being taken. It may take longer than you expected, or because sometimes the money has been transferred, but action will be taken to the very last minute. Because what happens after you sent the wrong one, we've also facilitated our customers to be able to reverse that transaction, the power in our hands. But being the Kenyans that we are, you know, as much as we are driving digital financial inclusion, we bring one solution to bring power to the hands, and then now we have the merchants on our neck saying, these Kenyans of ours, they are buying goods, paying by M-Pesa, and as they turn around the corner, they reverse the transaction. So we keep evolving to ensure every party is safe. So on digital services, again, for our merchants, we've given them products like Pochi la Biashara, Paybill, and Till, just to ensure that everybody is safe. Then we have access to our various centers in terms of reporting, our ecosystem. And then what happens is in the back end, we work with law enforcement, and up to 70%, we've actually recovered and refunded over 70% of monies that have been defrauded. And it's a percentage you want to ensure keeps increasing. What we keep doing as well is looking at trends, because you can tell the people who defraud the customer. You will send them money, immediately they'll transfer or they will draw. It is very telling, it's a very telling pattern. And again, where we are very supportive of the registration process is because we know who is behind this. And the unifier is the ID card. So previously, it may have been a challenge because there are different SIM cards involved, but if they were all registered under one person, there's only one Mark Masai now that we need to go for. So again, we'll appeal to you also as customers, please ensure you've registered your lines to also ensure and help us in protecting you. Finally, we also invest very heavily in terms of data and into the future looking at artificial intelligence and being able to predictively do some things like Kevin is doing with the way we save numbers. I'll be checking my phone later on today. But so that we're able to see patterns, you know, it's able to tell things that we are not able to tell. Some areas that cause you pain have been done for your protection in terms of digital services. When you lose your SIM card and you say, I'm not able to swap it because I'm in a different area, we have done geolocking to protect the customer, because we're saying there's no way you typically in this area and suddenly in a few minutes your card is being swapped in a different town altogether. So it's always going to be work in progress, feedback from the customers, feedback and working hand in hand with all our different regulators in ensuring that the customer is protected.
Thank you, Lucille.
Thank you.
You have something to say?
I feel not protected as a customer. I'm inappropriately dressed and nobody wants me out here with the lighting. Temperatures hit 35 degrees or 40 degrees. So I don't know really, but as a customer I feel very unprotected from that. But that's on a light note. I think from a CPK perspective, I think my last part in short is that customer protection is really at the center of what we do. That's our primary mandate. And why it's very important for us is that when customers feel protected, then what it does is that it's all about, and I'm sure that the PSPs will talk about it, but our regulators and agencies will say it's all about driving positive customer outcomes. And that's why we do whatever we do, whether we provide services or products, it's about positive customer outcomes. And for us is to ensure that then we have what I would call consumer trust. And what consumer trust then does is that it ensures from our bigger mandate that the stability of financial systems and markets, and also our markets mature. And we will continue to execute our mandate, working with our partners who are sister regulators, but also working with the industry and working with the public, because our key mandate is to ensure that we protect the public. So I'll stop there.
Thank you, Michael. Mr. Oro, you people are actually part of my panelists, and as our host, I think I'll be very unfair if I don't give you guys a parting shot. So please take less than a minute to give us your parting shot on this particular day. Microphone? Can you give them?
It's 15th March, eh? The sun is overhead. At the tent, eh? It's like a greenhouse.
Okay, on behalf of So on behalf of CA, I did introduce myself earlier. I'm Stella, KE-CIRT. I'm in charge of enforcement. So we just want to thank everyone. I think the forum has been excellent. It has covered a lot of issues. I know we'd want to continue for a little longer and talk about some of the issues that are there. But as a parting shot, the consumer is key and is prime. And for us, that is why we take time to do what we do. And we thank the operators and all the consumer organizations for their very candid and easy access to talking with us. And really, thank you very much to everybody who has been here. I'll leave this now to Juma, Oro, who will finish off for us.
Thank you. I think, Clement, I must say first, thank you for moderating the session, and thank you a lot for all the panelists. I think this was a very fruitful discussion, especially how people save numbers. I'm also going to check my phone, how I saved them. So, participants, we are quite grateful. I know that we still have one session, and we apologize very profusely for the time delay that we dragged from the morning. What we'll do is, if you can agree to take lunch for 30 minutes so that we can be back at 3:20. The session for another 30 minutes so that at least by 4 we all can still catch up with whatever we need to do. Is that okay? Lunch is served at the Dow Garden. That is as you go down there, the ocean. So just pass through the main restaurant and then the Dow Garden, you go there for lunch. And then when we come back at 3:20, we can do that so that we can finish the other session at 4. Thank you very much.
Before you go, I request you to kindly clap for all my panelists.
Thank you for that. So you pick your lunch voucher as you go out.
I know.
Sure you pick
Thank
the
you.
lunch voucher.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah. Oh, one photo. Okay, we have a photo session.
You just keep on acting just like a fool. You know it ain't cool. Don't be cruel, 'cause I would never be that cruel to you. I know, oh, I know, don't be cruel. Oh, girl, you need to change your attitude. I know, oh, don't be cruel. Hey, yo, cutie, what's up with this attitude? I thought I was being real good to you. I treat you sweet, take you out at night, but you never say thanks, girl, that ain't right. I bought you diamonds, even gave you pearls. I took you for a cruise all around the world. I treat you high post, but you play me close. And if I put a drink up, you won't even toast. Girl, I work so hard for you from 9 to 5, so you could have the finer things in life. Since you're the kind that's never satisfied. Oh, girl, as long as I've been giving my heart to you, you should be giving me your heart too. But you just keep on acting just like a fool. You know it ain't cool. Don't be cruel. Fancy cars, the diamond rings. I'm just about giving you everything. There's really not much I won't do for you. I bought you 12 yellow roses and candy too. I like to be up front and never play the back. But the way you treat me, girl, is like
18 Party with the DJ Danny Byrne, the Addiction Entertainer.